They give you a translation and they say to you, you can trust the translation. So they're happy to give it to you if you're gullible, but if you're a critical thinker, suddenly it's not trustworthy.
Oh, I'm sorry, I can't quote 35 seconds of monologue. Wow, I must be a moron.
No, your words, bro, your words, not mine, your words.
Right? Okay, fine then, I'm an idiot. Correct me
Again,
if
your
I'm
words, not mine. Did Muhammad communicate multiple ways to perform Salah or one way to perform Salah?
One way, but
One way. So who's right, the Sunni or the Shia?
the thing is,
the biblical test.
Yes.
Take your pick.
What is the biblical test?
You can't go to the previously aforementioned screens and say that the biblical texts are the source of your religion. Which one are they?
In something as basic as Salah, as basic as prayer, there are two forms, which means that the tradition of the Prophet was not properly preserved.
You know about the Camel?
Yeah.
What that hadith is not in reference to like a bowl or a small pond, it's in reference to like a river. So you know, like when Jesus came, he told stories to people, they didn't understand it, so it's a parable, and he has to tell, okay, that's a bad example. I'm not gonna say, it wasn't a parable what he said, obviously, but it weren't in reference to like, obviously a bowl, he's not gonna say there's a bowl and the camel just pissed in it, it's drinkable still, because that wouldn't be contaminated. He meant, they're talking about a river and not a pond. You know, like a little small pond, it's not even that. Because if you've got a river flowing, and I was there peeing in it, okay, if you're next to me, then obviously you're going to get that backflow. But if you're on the other side, it's not contaminated, that's still clean water to drink, you know what I mean? So that's what he meant. That's what I want to say.
May I reply?
Because
You've mixed up two hadiths there. You've got the hadiths about the well in near Medina.
it's still a stream.
One second. So you've got the well in Medina, and then you've got the camel piss and camel milk. So the camel milk and the camel urine, Muhammad is saying, do this as a cure to your stomach ailments, which is separate from the hadith that talks about going to the well and performing your ablutions in a well that there's rotting dogs, menstrual towels, and human feces. Right. So you wait, hold on. You're confusing two things.
No, I just want to make one point. You know, the people at the time of Muhammad, before anyone wrote down, say you're Muhammad, before say he's the first follower, I think it was his nephew, the guy that, it was Khadija obviously, and then there was the guy that said the first verse, the small people, so he had 6 and 5. Now you have to understand, the people around him hated him for what he was trying to change and how he was getting a gathering. People that were high in power were following him, giving all their wealth. So these people, when Muhammad died, you've got to understand, we've got the Quran. Right? This is why I keep saying, where in the Quran? And you heard a lot of people saying to you, where in the Quran? Because the Quran, we believe, it can be interpreted incorrectly, but nothing in there will say anything about drinking camel piss or anything about the age of the Prophet's wife, anything like that. But then you have these hadiths of people saying they wrote it down. Now, these people that wrote things down, they're human, they're not prophets. Muhammad was a prophet. Even he, like Jesus, was tested by the He, by mistake, uttered something about Allah and something, and then they all in that moment, because he decided, the devil came and used that and said, and sounded like the angel Gabriel. So angel Gabriel came down after. Why didn't God put angel Gabriel before that happened? Because God wants, it has to happen, the devil has to test the prophet. So when the angel came down and gave him a new verse, these people that saw this, they first were excited that they were following the faith of the gods. Then now the angel Gabriel, the true ones, come down and said, no, these are names of you, your gods, and God can take a verse and change it with email you know. But the point I'm trying to make is, now Muhammad died, you've got Abu Bakr, Uthman, Ali, Umar, Uthman and Ali, none of them married a 6-year-old or shagged a 9-year-old. None of them have even had wives that age. Think about that for a second. You've got one hadith that says about the age. Now you have to understand, why had they kept this hadith there? You know how where Muslims are saying this is not...
Sorry, can I reply? Because you're going on a bit.
Okay, the point, let me make the point. Can I make the point?
Make the point then.
The point is, he had many people that hate him, like haters. You know, like on YouTube, you've got people...
Make your point, bro. Don't
They
just go
wrote
on and
these
go.
hadiths and they've put them in the collection. These people that have founded that Bukhari Muslim, yes, they're sincere people, and they've said this person is a sincere person who wrote the hadith, but I believe this person who wrote the hadith made a mistake in
Right,
some
so
of
allow me
the
to reply because
Not trustworthy.
not trustworthy because it goes against the Quran.
let me reply.
It goes
because-
against the Quran.
Let me reply because the fact of the matter is, I don't blame you for being embarrassed by these hadiths.
I'm not embarrassed.
They are embarrassing.
I'm not embarrassed by
And the reality is that Sahih al-Bukhari and the science of hadith say that have made a number of these hadiths sahih. If they're sahih, they're considered to be trustworthy. That's so about the age of Aisha. That's a trustworthy hadith.
Why?
One second, right?
Which
So
countries allow
one
the marriage?
second.
Which countries allow the marriage?
Did I interrupt you?
No, you didn't.
Right, so don't interrupt me. Thank you. So, it's sahih. It means it's trustworthy. So that means, as far as the Muslim ulama is concerned, Muhammad did do it. So he did have sex with a 9-year-old girl.
We're using the word sex.
Consummated the marriage.
No,
That's sex.
This is an
No,
English
one
word.
second. Again, you're interrupting, and yet you'll be the first to complain.
We have to understand.
No,
Let him finish his point, and
let
then
me
you can
finish my point.
And then you can rebut afterwards.
Right? It's sahih in the Bukhari that Muhammad told people to go and drink camel piss with milk. It's sahih in Bukhari that Muhammad sends people to performs their ablutions in dirty water. Now, here's the thing. If you don't trust sahih hadiths, you need to stop being a Sunni Muslim.
No, I'm not. Listen, there's no such thing. All this is the point. You see all these Sunni
Pray for us.
said, Shia as well. This never existed in time of Muhammad. They were just Muslims, people that surrendered and believed in one God. This is it. There was only one Sunni. He even told them on his last sermon, a white's not above a black, a black's not above a black. You must have read this.
Let's just stick to the camel piss hadith.
I don't believe this was something
Do
that
you
was said
believe
by
it's
the Prophet.
sahih?
I don't believe it.
Right, so you are contradicting your own
I don't believe it.
scholars.
I don't believe it.
Right, so you're...
Okay, I'll say like this. No, I'll say like this.
Tell
Just
me-
in case it's true, I'll say like this. I don't believe Muhammad would have said something that would not be true scientifically.
Right, so you're contradicting your own scholars.
No, I'm not.
And Muhammad said lots of things.
I don't have a scholar.
Sahih al-Bukhari, who said it was sahih.
Is it in the Quran?
Are you better than Sahih al-Bukhari?
No.
Are you
You
better than
are
Bukhari?
saying things like that. No, I'm not. But were they there? First of all, there's collected hadiths.
So what, you're
He's
chucking...
saying. I'm saying this to him.
Oh, wait. Are you playing to the crowd?
I think he's Muslim. He might
If
be
he's
Christian.
playing to the crowd, put him on camera.
Muslim.
Right.
I'm not. You're not on camera. I'm not on camera, right?
Not right now, no.
Have you started filming?
But the point is, bro, I can see you're embarrassed by what Muhammad said.
I'm not embarrassed because you never
But
said it.
no, according to who? Which scholar are you quoting that contradicts Bukhari, who said that the hadith was sahih?
I'm going to say this to you.
Which scholar?
What does sahih mean?
Yeah, it means trustworthy.
There's only the term.
It's trustworthy and reliable.
Even when you've got us both on camera, for some reason his voice is more.
Just get your voice. So move forward.
I don't even want my voice to be on camera. That's the point.
So what's the point of debating, bro?
I did say to him when I was speaking, didn't I say to you I don't want to be on camera?
The fact of the matter, it's a
You're
sahih-
Christian, you heard me.
It's a sahih.
Is it
it's
sahih?
a sahih narration.
You heard
You
me.
got to deal with it.
Is it sahih?
See, this is why I don't want to be on camera because this guy is like behind the camera.
Bro, you stand and heckle me.
It's
So
fine,
don't complain.
I don't want to be on camera.
Right, we're not putting you on camera.
Did I heckle you over there?
Was it
Oh my God.
You
sahih?
go to him and talk to him, bro. You
Did I not wait until you finished?
JC, I've got this.
Bob, did I not
Right.
wait until you finished?
Let's just...
No,
you
don't-
interrupted me
Excuse
repeatedly.
me, did the camera not come off? And you finished your speech, and I said to you, nice speech, by the way.
Yeah.
And I said, not
No,
on
you
camera.
did there. You did
I
there.
spe-
You
I
did there. Yes, you did there.
I did there.
You did there.
Okay, so then you should apologise. then.
No, because you've heckled me in the
But you made
past.
it out.
You've
that
heckled me in the
I've
past.
come over.
Look, let's not get into the personal
Come on,
argument.
Deal with the hadith.
Deal with the
Deal
hadith.
with the hadith.
Deal with the hadith.
I'd love to.
Go.
I'm not on camera
All right, so we'll just do a wrap up then.
Bro, I've seen you on video.
No, we don't. No, we don't.
I've seen the videos, man.
Bro, just let he's,
Right, we'll quick wrap up, 'cause this
okay.
guy's
If he doesn't want to discuss, he doesn't want to discuss.
You should be like
The
that,
fact
man.
of the matter is,
Tell them that one team the same
bro,
thing. They
bro,
talk about the Chile
bro,
team.
bro,
The
bro.
past 25 years.
Okay, I'll talk.
The
I'll
whole
talk.
Dawa team.
Yeah, yeah.
Let me.
The whole Dawa team.
Yeah,
talk about the Chile
you live by double standards.
Say what you
This
wanna
is why
say.
I reject your religion, because your religion doesn't make any sense.
I told
So,
you.
You don't understand. They hated him, so they wrote these things.
no, you're saying that.
don't
Which scholar contradicts Bukhari in saying
I
these
believe
hadiths
that
are not
whatever
sahih?
Muhammad said in the Quran is 100% sahih. But you got to understand the people that have these hadiths that say sahih.
Like
they're
Bukhari,
saying it's like you're trustworthy.
like
Imagine
Muslim.
you never lied.
Chat to him, bro.
Talk to me.
Chat to him.
Imagine you never lied. Imagine you never spoke a lie. And you said, I thought this guy said this.
Bukhari
It'll be sahih.
and
But if it goes against the
Muslim-
Quran, it's not in the Quran.
No,
it's not
bro,
relevant.
you're just running away.
It's not relevant.
You're running away from your own
Do you know
literature.
about the camel piss?
You're running away from your own literature.
believes that the
Bro,
Prophet-
this is. Let me just explain
Do you
this
want
to
to be
you.
on camera, by the way?
Muslims work by
They want
using
someone on
Quran
camera better to have two
and
people. I
hadiths,
understand.
and you can verify this just by asking the two Muslims right next to you. Muslims work by Quran and hadiths, and they have compilers named Bukhari and Muslim, who are considered, in terms of their Sahih collection, as being trustworthy. Now the brother has come up to me because for the last 2 weeks I have exposed the embarrassing statements of Muhammad in terms of Muhammad said to drink camel piss with milk, and he said to perform your ablutions in a well that was filled with menstrual towels, human feces and rotting dogs' carcasses. That's what Muhammad said. Now,
I know it's embarrassing. I know it's embarrassing.
and Muslims are embarrassed by that statement. And so what he's now come to me and done, he said, no, these aren't Muhammad's words. But which scholar agrees with that when Bukhari and Muslim were trusted by the Muslim community to compile the trustworthy hadiths? So on the one hand, I have this authority, Bukhari, that is trusted by over 1 billion Muslims, and then I have one Muslim in the park who has come up to me and said, no, it's not trustworthy. And the reason why he said, no, it's not trustworthy is because he knows it's a load of rubbish and he doesn't want to believe that his prophet can talk rubbish. So rather than deal with the fact that his prophet talks rubbish, he simply says, well, it couldn't have been Muhammad saying it. But Muslim scholars say that he did. Right, so let's talk about something in the Quran.
Okay, yeah.
You want to talk about science in the Quran? Let's talk about science in the Quran.
Quran only. Quran only. No hadith. is
You're a
fine.
Quran only Muslim, so come and let's talk about.
Words. You like putting words in people's mouth.
Oh, so you're not. So do you trust hadiths then?
What did I say to you before?
Which collection, bro? Which collections have hadiths do you trust?
People that hated him.
Which collections do you
I
trust?
don't want to be on camera.
Which collections of hadiths do you trust? You see, he doesn't want to answer, but I'll answer for him. Because Sunni Muslims trust Muslim and Bukhari. And Bukhari quotes Muhammad as saying that Muslims were instructed to perform their ablutions in a well that had in it menstrual towels, human feces and rotting dogs' carcasses. Muhammad is reported by Bukhari and Muslim to instruct his followers to go to a camel, take its milk, mix it with its urine and drink it. Of course they're embarrassed, and that's why they walk away. They walk away because it's embarrassing. And he comes to me and says, well, that's not Muhammad's words. It's not Muhammad's words. He doesn't believe it's Muhammad's words because he doesn't want to believe that his prophet was speaking rubbish. And he was. But then he says, well, I only believe what the Quran says. So let's look at something that the Quran says. So I'm a Christian. Muslims in the park go round targeting Christians and attacking our faith week in and week out. Why, as Christians, can we not do the same and challenge them on their own book? And what I notice is that they find people who are not trained in apologetics, tourists, innocent Christians who don't study these kinds of things, and then hammer them with complicated and nuanced arguments. But when Christians who've taken the time to study their books come to them and challenge them on what their book says, they always run away. So, he said he believes only in the Quran. So let me show you some errors in the Quran.
Okay.
In the Quran.
Quran only, okay.
So, let's have a look at errors in the Quran. So, it says in the Quran,
Yeah.
what shape is the earth, bro?
Flat.
For a scientific question, I don't ask the Holy Spirit, I ask a scientist. So let's just look at it. Everyone knows, and we have known for thousands of years, that the earth is round.
Yeah.
Round.
Round.
Now if I came to you and I said, I've got this table, it's like a carpet. Now notice he's heckling me. Notice now he's heckling me. This is exactly what we said he would do. He doesn't want to engage, he just wants to heckle. But Surah 71:19 says this. Now bearing in mind, he says he believes the Quran. So I want to ask him, according to Surah 71:19, and Allah has made the earth for you as a carpet. Now when I say as a carpet, what image comes into your mind? Do you imagine a round ball? No, you don't. You imagine a rug laid flat on the ground. That's what you imagine. So when Muhammad said, I have made the earth for you like a carpet, he's wrong. The Quran is scientifically wrong. And yet Muslims will challenge Christians about our Bible and yet won't answer questions about their Quran. And it doesn't just say this once, it repeats it again and again and again. In Surah 78, 6 and 7, it says, are you listening? Surah 78, 6 and 7, have we not made the earth as a wide expanse and mountains as pegs? A wide expanse, not a ball, not a circle. It says in the book of Job, in the Bible, that the earth, that God has placed the circle of the earth upon nothing. The circle of the earth upon nothing. By contrast, the Quran says that the earth is a carpet, a wide expanse, and that mountains are pegs that make it secure. Mountains are the result precisely of the earth's instability, not a cause of its stability. It is based upon the movement of tectonic plates. The Quran repeats this again in Surah 15:19. Once again, it says, and the earth we have spread out like a carpet. When I say carpet, do you imagine a round ball? No, you imagine a flat shape. And ladies and gentlemen, let's not be fooled into thinking that everyone thought this back then. Because the ancient Greek philosophers were able to identify that the earth was round using nothing but their own vision. Watching ships go over the horizon, they would seem to one sight to sink. Why would ships sink? Because the earth was round. In the book of Job, in the Bible, it says the Lord has placed the circle of the earth upon nothing. The Quran is in error. It is not from God. There are errors in it, and the Quran says to me as an inquirer, not to you Muslims, but to me as a non-believer, if this were from any other than Allah, you, as in I the Christian, would find many errors therein. And so when I read the Quran, according to the Quranic test that Allah has given to me, and I find errors in the Quran, I have to conclude that the Quran is not from Allah. So, is that the only error that we have in the Quran, or does it get worse? It gets worse. So much worse.
Bob, you speak
So,
Arabic.
in Surah 50. Now, 1 second, ladies and gentlemen. The Muslim heckler says to me, you cannot speak Arabic.
He said that.
He seems to forget that 90% of Muslims can't speak Arabic. Most Muslims can be found in Pakistan, India and Indonesia. Their native language is not Arabic. I don't believe in Arabization. I believe that my God can communicate to everyone in a universal language. If their God can't, it is because their God is deficient. He is a failure as a communicator. By contrast, we Christians believe that because God became a man and we can tell stories about this man, it is the message and not the words that are important, which means the message can be translated and God can communicate to you in any language. By contrast, Muslims believe that every word of the Quran is directly from Allah, which means you cannot translate it into another language. And they pick and choose when they want to believe their translations. When they find a gullible Westerner open to Islam, they give you a translation and they say to you, you can trust the translation. But when, as I did, you find errors, mistakes and contradictions in that Quran, that Quranic translation, suddenly they say, oh, you can't trust the translation. So they're happy to give it to you if you're gullible, but if you're a critical thinker, suddenly it's not trustworthy. Double standards.
You're talking as if all Muslims are one person, and second of all, but you're criticizing Islam. You're not understanding Islam. There's a huge difference.
So,
you don't read it to see the holiness.
he says, I am speaking as if all Muslims are one person. Allow me to correct myself because that criticism is fair. I am speaking specifically of those who are carrying out dawah, not all Muslims, and that is a fair point. But then he says, I'm reading the Quran to find errors, not its holiness. I do not find holiness in a book that teaches that I as a Christian should be made into a second-class citizen. I as a Christian do not find holiness in a book that says women can be held as captives that your right hands possess and that you can have sex with. That's what the Quran says. I don't find holiness in a book that says you can marry pre-pubescent children. I don't find holiness in a book that says slay the unbelievers. I don't find holiness in a book that denigrates my belief as a Christian and misrepresents them to Muslims. I do not find holiness in a book that demands of me as an inquirer that I should not find errors in this book, but yet when I do, the fault is mine and not the author of the Quran. There is a lot of unholiness in the Quran. But will you find unholiness in Jesus Christ?
You are interpreting, you're taking the interpretation of somebody who worked for Daesh, and you're saying that this is what Islam is, right? You're not seemingly trying to understand the comprehensiveness of the Quran and the proper ways in which you can interpret it.
So the argument of the brother
I didn't continue.
is that I am taking the logic of someone who has interpreted the Quran according to ISIS. He is wrong. I am taking the interpretation given by Abdullah Yusuf Ali. He is not a member of ISIS. He was a trusted translator of the Quran. These are his words, not ISIS's words. Translated by Abdullah Yusuf Ali. The name's right there on the
Ask
book.
all of them, they trust him? No.
So, let's look at some more errors in the Quran.
Muslims and what they believe about the Quran.
More errors in a book that is supposed to be free from error. You can ask a question in a moment.
No.
In a moment.
Let us speak in it then.
The Quran says,
my point, and you
the
want to
Quran
now.
says in Surah 36, 38 to 40, I'll make this point, then you can ask a question. The Quran says in Surah 36, 38 to 40, the sun runs its course for a period determined for him. That is the decree of him, the exalted in might, the all-knowing. And the moon, we have measured for it its mansions to traverse till she returns like the old and withered lower part of a date stalk. It is not permitted to the sun to catch up the moon, nor can night outstrip the day. The Quran is saying there is no such thing as a solar eclipse, because the moon catches up with the sun and night overtakes the day during a solar eclipse. The birds of the air go to sleep. The heat of the sun disappears and it feels as if it is night, and you cannot see without a light. By every definition, this is darkness. By every definition, this is night, and darkness has caught up with the day. The Quran is in error. Go on, you wanted to ask a question.
Or quite possibly it's an explanation, a very poetic explanation of how lightness comes to darkness and darkness comes to light, which shows you the interconnectedness of the world, right? See, what you're doing right here is you're giving me an interpretation out of criticism rather than understanding, right? You're cherry picking some sort of understanding in order to show the Quran is false, which is the main reason why you will win no converts today. Not today.
Brother, we're winning converts. I was speaking to a convert just 2 days ago.
Okay. How many?
He is supposedly asking a question. I'm just waiting for him. What's your question, bro? What's your question?
In the very beginning, let him speak. He spoke about completely different topics, right? You talked about pre-marital sex. You talked about how Christians are seen as second-class citizens. And there's a third point I can't seem to remember. How did you move from this to the sun and the moon?
Is that your question?
There is no coherence in your speech.
There's no actual question that he's making. He's just making a series of points. He says that there's no connection between the things that I'm saying. What he seems to forget is that the reason why I talked about the unholiness of the Quran is because I started by talking about the errors in the Quran and the fact that Allah says there should be no such errors in the Quran. It challenges me to find them, and I do. Now, if I find errors in the Quran, according to the Quran, it's not from Allah. And then he says, oh, you're reading the Quran to find errors. not its holiness. And that is why I talked about the fact that the Quran says, marry prepubescent children, have sex with your female captives.
Where?
I'll show you.
Show me.
I will.
I will show you.
I will show you. I will show you. I will show you. Unfortunately for him,
Nothing to spread peace and love in this world.
unfortunately for him, we have a better example in our Lord Jesus Christ. A man who at a time when slavery was normal did not have slaves.
Don't touch my lad. I'm just talking in.
Bro, who you been aggressive with?
I'm being aggressive.
He's been aggressive with me. Are you going to clap me? So the Muslim's threatening to punch me. He's threatening to punch me. He's just done it. He's just done it. So, this Quran. What's wrong with this Quran?
There's nothing wrong with it.
There's nothing wrong with it.
You're reading it to see.
No, bro. You're wrong. You need to do some more reading. We need to do some more reading. We need to do some more reading.
He's not letting us talk. He's just talking. He's just running his mouth.
He's answering questions. You guys asking questions, yeah?
He's not letting us talk.
You guys can't tell him to shut up because he's framing his unit. You guys can come.
Someone,
Bro, I'm not there.
on the ground and it works. Hey, guys, if you're asking,
Bro, lecture him. He was the one throwing out the threats, not me.
that's precisely the point. I'm sharing the point.
Sir, lecture him, not me.
He turned away and walked away.
Poor guy, he just wants the world to hear him.
Oh, he just wants the world to hear him threaten me. Do you see how it doesn't matter what Muslims do in the corner, Muslims will always defend them. Brother, if someone comes
Now
and
you're coming up with this generalized claim about how Muslims act. When you make
it's on film. He threatened me. You're defending him. You're doing it. You're doing
When did
it.
you threaten him?
I didn't even threaten. I told you let us talk.
Okay, so now you're lying. You're going against the
It's
word.
on camera. Go and check it out. Go and check it out. So, do you believe that the sun sets in a puddle of mud?
I have nothing idea about Quran. I'm not.
Do you? Do you believe it?
Do you believe the day was
Why do you read the Quran? Klaus, why do you read the Quran?
Why do I read the Quran? Well, firstly, this isn't the Quran, it's a translation of the Quran. I can't read the Quran, the Quran's in Arabic. That's why you're it's not a message. Yes, I agree. It is a problem. It's a problem that your God can't communicate to humanity, and he has elevated the Arabs above everyone else. So that we all now have to go to the Arabs, apparently, to hear what God is saying. My religion is better than yours, because my religion teaches that God can speak in all languages. God can communicate in all languages.
does it?
I agree, and they don't speak Arabic. So why do Muslims keep telling us that we need to read Arabic?
I'd merely like to
If you can accept Islam without reading Arabic, why can you not criticize it?
If you feel that your points are strong enough to be publicly aired,
I will. I will. What, sorry?
Do you have any church for sale?
Do you know that there's churches in Mecca? Do you know that there are Christians converting in Mecca? Do you know that Christians, there are Christians inside Saudi Arabia? It angers them to hear that fact.
Underground churches.
They deny it. There are underground churches inside Saudi Arabia, and they are not free as the Muslims are free in this country. They are persecuted in Saudi Arabia. They are oppressed in Saudi Arabia. We don't need to take lectures.
I don't think so.
So, do you want to ask a question?
I want to make a point.
Okay, make a point. Make a point.
Take, for example, when Christians used to rule government in the medieval ages or in the dark ages, right? If anybody wanted, if Jews wanted to open a synagogue, if Muslims wanted to open a mosque, they would be persecuted, they would be killed. During the times of the Prophet invited Christians to pray in his mosque, and he let the Jews conduct their own affairs. Right? Where is this tolerance in Christianity? There is no tolerance.
So,
in
his
Christianity.
point was...
You, in that book, in your book, no, wait. In your book,
Is that your
it
point?
says that any religion that doesn't see Jesus Christ as God, as the Lord and Savior, that is a religion of the Antichrist, which means Muslims, Jews, Hindus, Sikhs are all part of the religion of the Antichrist, right? So you're telling me the Quran is spreading hatred when your book shows us to be the antithesis of good, to be the embodiment of evil. Come on, man.
Come on, your point. So, right, here's why you're wrong, bro. Here's why you're wrong.
Tell me why I'm wrong.
Firstly, Muhammad, before he died, had all Jews and Christians excluded from Saudi Arabia.
Nope.
Before he died. That's in your hadith.
They've been there until
That is your hadith. The Christians of Najaf were suppressed. When Muslims invaded Christian lands, you suppressed Christians and turned them into second-class citizens.
Would you like 5
Now you said to me, where in the Quran does it say you can have sex with a female captive? I'm going to show
Let's
you.
our points right now.
I'm going to show you.
And then we can go there.
No, you don't own this conversation.
I am. I'm part of this
Surah
conversation.
4, 24, also prohibited are women. This is talking about women you can have sex with.
Okay.
Also prohibited are women already married, except those whom your right hands possess.
Okay.
This is talking about women that were captured in war. That is talking about having sex with slaves. You said, show me where. I have shown you where.
Okay.
Now answer me this. Do you believe that you can capture women in war and then have sex with them?
Okay. See, the thing is, what you're putting forward right now is the interpretation of this one guy. Okay. There are many other interpretations that show that what your right hand possesses is not actually slaves in war. Right?
Says it right here.
It says it right here, but this is not the Quran. This is a translation.
So and again. Whenever we find information that is embarrassing to Muslims, they want to disown it.
No, that's not. Man,
That's what you're doing. It wasn't a Muslim it was a Muslim that translated this.
So what?
This is not a Christian translation. It's a Muslim translation.
Bro, a Christian went up to Jews in a synagogue and killed them all. Is he a proper representation of Christianity? But you can't say that this is an adequate representation. It's not up to you. Just because he's has a label of a Muslim.
Okay. You said
a lot of people have different purposes.
You said it's about interpretation.
Okay.
Right. I don't know if you're a Sunni or a Shia. You're a Shia. Right. So I'm going to use an argument that won't work with him. Because you don't accept Sahih al-Bukhari, do you?
No, all of his hadiths.
No, do you accept this one? Narrated by Abu Sa'id al-Khudri. That while he was sitting with Allah's apostle, he said, "Oh, Allah's apostle, we get female captives as our share of booty, and we are interested in their prices. What is your opinion about coitus interruptus?" Do you know what coitus interruptus is? No, coitus interruptus is to not ejaculate inside the female. It means to withdraw. It is better for you not to do it. No soul which Allah has destined to exist will surely come into existence. Sahih al-Bukhari 3:34-422.
What's your understanding of this? Just before I continue.
So, Muhammad and the war party have captured female slaves. So they've captured women, they've made them slaves, and now they're having sex with them. Yeah? And some of them are not ejaculating inside the females because they don't want to make them pregnant because they fear that will lower the price. So their whole understanding about what to do with these women is based upon how much they will be worth in the market. How much can we sell them for? Bearing in mind that these women have just seen their fathers, their brothers, their uncles and their sons killed in war. Are we not supposed to understand this as rape? Do you honestly think that these women voluntarily had sex with the people that killed their families?
But Muhammad is saying, it is better for you to ejaculate inside the women you're raping. What is your understanding of it?
I personally have never came across this hadith.
Do you believe it?
I don't know. I don't know who the chain of transmission. If I know the chain of transmission, I can tell you.
It's considered sahih.
Okay, so what? I need to see the chain of
So what?
So what? Remember that.
No, it's true. As a Shia, it's quite possible. No, I accept that.
I need to see who said what. Okay?
Yeah, I get that.
For me, if I was to interpret this hadith, I would think that when the Prophet, peace be upon him, said, do you really do that? It is better for you not to do it. It is to say that all of the things that was said in terms of the coitus, in terms of making them captives, is all wrong. Because one of the main principles of the Prophet was to free slaves. Because of this very logical reason. You free slaves so that they can have bonds to no human on this earth except God, which is the omnipresent being.
So your argument,
for me, this hadith,
your argument,
something that
and this is what we see again and again. Muslims are embarrassed by the reports about their prophet and they want to disown them. I do not blame you.
But
even Sunnis do it, bro. Even the Sunnis in the park disown these hadiths. Right, it's called Sahih for a reason. It's called Sahih. I know as a Shia you don't, just out of interest, for the camera, just changing this topic ever so slightly.
There are a lot of hadiths that
As a Shia, why do you reject Sunni hadith?
I don't necessarily reject all of the Sunni hadith.
Why do you reject some of them?
Because some of them have a chain of transmission wherein the people who have been transmitting the hadith is a very long line of people, right? And sometimes the people within the line of transmission are people that I don't necessarily trust.
Okay, so what you're essentially saying as a Shia is that you do not trust all the people that the Sunnis trust. That's not. I'm not mischaracterizing, am I?
We cannot generalize.
No. I'm just trying to encapsulate your position.
Because at the same
Am
time,
I understanding it right? You're saying that I can't trust all the Sunni hadith because I don't trust all the same people that the Sunnis trust.
It's not only that.
So it is that.
It's not only that.
What else is it?
Okay, if I tell you something and I ask you to tell this guy something and ask this guy something and then tell that guy something, by the time what I say goes to that guy over there with blue eyes, it would have been completely changed. Whether you had the intent to change whatever I said or not. So there is this possibility of flaw.
So now let me ask you this question. As a Christian, when I hear Sunnis and Shias saying, well, we can't agree about who we trust in the chain of Islam. No, one second, bro. 1 second, I'm talking to him. If I, as an outsider, and I see Sunni and Shia saying, well, I don't agree with your chain of transmissions, and then the Sunni said to the Shia, well, I don't agree with your chain of transmissions, and you're both accusing one another of having untrustworthy chains of transmission, as an outsider, why should I trust any hadith at all when Muslims can't agree who to believe?
Okay. But the same principle.
I'm talking to him, bro.
You don't want to.
No, because I'm talking
I would
to him.
forward this point. There are the main fundamental principles that bind Shias and Sunnis together. But I would also like you to see the flip side. With Christianity, you have Orthodox, you have Anglican, you have Protestant, you have Catholic, and the Bible there was an Old Testament and a New Testament, as if the Old Testament was not good enough, so you made a new one.
And the problem,
Right, 1 second, bro.
And plus, the people who wrote the Bible, most of them never even directly met Jesus.
Okay, so
how can
allow me to reply. Allow me to reply.
land.
Bro, are you going to listen to him or do you want to listen to my
respect
reply?
our religion. We respect
Do you want to
trying
listen?
to multitask.
Right. Well, you're a man. I accept that you can't multitask. Every other man does. You need to do that. Yeah. So, I'm not a soy boy. Don't worry about it. So, as I was saying, bro. As I was saying, as I was saying. So he essentially has admitted that Sunni and Shia can't agree on hadith.
Yeah, he said that.
He said that. But rather than deal with the consequences of that reality, he wants to change the subject. He wants to get off the topic as quickly as he can.
No.
And we see this all the time. Every week.
I'm trying to
Hold on, 1 second. Hold on, one second.
Okay, go ahead.
All Christians believe in the fundamentals of our faith. To be a Christian, you have to believe in the Nicene Creed. If you don't believe in the Nicene Creed, you are not a Christian. Full stop. And every Christian believes in the Nicene Creed. That is our fundamental doctrine, and the Nicene Creed says nothing about the canon of Scripture at all. At all. It's not a direct equivalence. Now, one second. Hadith are fundamental to your religion. They are fundamental. They are fundamental. They are fundamental. Because, and I'll tell you why. Because they change the character of the 5 pillars. Muslim Shias and Muslim Sunnis do not perform Salat in the same way. They do not understand Salat in the same way. And Sunnis do not consider the Salat that is performed in a way different to their own as being valid. And vice versa.
Can I respond by the last point that you made? Right. The way in which we practice our religion.
The 5 pillars.
Right. Let's stay on the prayer because that was the last point.
Let's stick with the prayer.
You made, right? The prayer. We may pray like this, they may pray like this, but we pray together, right? We can pray together and it's permissible. Second of all, you talked about how Christians all believe in the fundamental principles of Christianity. Right. Explain to me why Protestants and Catholics always used to have wars. Second of all, when it comes to Muslims, we all believe in the 5 pillars. We believe in charity, prayer, and fasting, right? And we have very specific verses regarding the reasons why we should stick together regardless of our differences. Just because we disagree sometimes on the hadiths that are transmitted does not mean that we have more differences than similarities.
So,
right?
Let's just deal with that. Because there are plenty of Sunnis in this park that would say you as a Shia are not a Muslim.
Who says I'm not a Muslim as a Sunni?
There are many Sunnis that say that.
Oh, come on. Okay, where are they?
What are they doing now? Because that'll prove my point.
Wait.
And they won't want to embarrass themselves because you're defending Islam right now.
No, they believe it.
It's on camera. There are plenty of Muslims that do that.
Where?
We've seen them.
Guys, who says I'm a kafir?
So, we've seen them.
Ain't nobody here.
So,
Who's a Sunni?
let's just be clear.
Look, no answer.
The hadiths.
You can't find anybody.
We can.
We can.
The hadiths.
Okay.
They say that hadiths are not fundamental.
Yeah.
But they are. Because unless you're going to say that the Quran stands alone, which no Muslim will, every Muslim says you understand the Quran through the hadith. So hadiths are fundamental because you cannot understand the Quran in isolation. He says I'm wrong. I'm going to prove myself right.
Before you come here,
show me in the Quran how you should pray.
You don't know what you are talking about.
Show me in the Quran how you should pray. If you can do it just with the Quran and no hadith,
when you say Quran,
show me.
You should be clean. You say Quran, you should be clean.
On the spot.
No, that's your religion, not my religion.
Of course.
That's your religion, not
Why
my
you are
religion.
talking about Muslim if you don't know about
You,
your religion?
I'm going to prove you wrong.
You don't know your religion.
No,
You talk about
I'm going to prove you wrong. He just said, I'm asking you now. You said hadith are not fundamental. You said that.
He said that.
Right. So show me how you perform salat in the Quran.
Why you are
What are the prostrations?
What is the relation
Show me.
between salat
with me or
and
him?
religion?
I'm not talking about salat. I'm talking about salat.
Okay.
Show me in the Quran.
Okay.
Can you? Show me in the. I'll ask. He's not answering my question. I'll ask you. Okay, you said hadiths are not fundamental. Right. Show me how you perform salat using the Quran alone.
Can you
Show us.
عبادة عملية أبا عن جد.
I would just like to deconstruct the assumption of your argument.
Show me how you swimming in the book.
The assumption of your argument is
According
that
to the book,
if
how you
the
swim it.
Quran is able to show us how to pray, then this makes then hadiths are no longer fundamental, right? And that hadiths, because they show us how to pray, they are fundamental, right? But what you don't understand is religion, the basis of religion, the fundamental principles of religion have to do with our belief, which is something that is within our psychological makeup rather than in our actions. It's in the intent, okay? So by definition, the hadiths are secondary sources and not primary sources, and they are therefore not fundamental, okay? Because the way in which I carry out my salat is not fundamental. What is fundamental is my belief. Do you get what I mean?
So what you're saying is you can go into a mosque and you can pray however you like, so long as your intention is good.
Not necessarily.
Not necessarily.
But the intention is a very important
I
part.
agree. In Christianity, we have exactly the same.
We have similarities. So that is fundamental. My intent to go into the mosque and want to pray to God, not to impress everybody else because of how humble I am, right? That's fundamental.
Can you go into the
The way in
mosque?
which I carry out my
Can you
religion
go into the
is not
mosque and pray
fundamental.
however you like?
It has to be in line with the religion.
It has to be in line with the religion. I agree. That's Islamic teaching. Where do you get the form of salat from? The Quran or the Hadith?
The Quran teaches orders us to pray.
Correct. Do you
Salah.
This is practical worship.
Salah.
Practical.
Do
how
you
you
use
teach
the
us
Quran
swimming
alone or the
according
Quran
to the
and
book?
Hadith?
How you teach me
To understand and to carry out this one of the pillars of Islam, this salah. Do you use Quran and Hadith or Quran alone?
What context are you talking about?
I'm just talking about the context of salah.
Hadith is complementary, it's not fundamental. This is what you're not getting. There's a difference.
Okay, so without the Hadith, you wouldn't know how to perform salah. That's correct, right?
عبادة عملية. أخذنا أبا عن جد.
We as Muslims,
يعني
I think I know your angle.
يتعلم السباحة من الكتاب ومن السنة.
Right. We as Muslims
ما
wouldn't do it.
تتعلم السباحة
Would
من
you agree
الكتاب
with me then?
نهائيا.
Because he's saying it's
هذا
not.
عبادة.
The
يعني شيء عملي.
Hadiths are fundamental
الصلاة شيء
to
عملي.
understand Islam.
أبا عن جد. أنت عمرنا
That's a totally different question. You
No,
said
it's related.
مو
now
بالحديث
you're gonna
بالكلام.
go here, there, and everywhere. But you asked one question, then you asked a second question, which was very broad. So that's a bit.
And you're
Okay,
you're
just we
conflating-
can use the
that's being
example. We can
genuine on
stick
your
with the
part.
example. No, it's completely genuine.
No,
In
it's not,
terms
because
of the
if you asked about
example of salah. Yes,
you asked
exactly.
about prayer, but then you said,
Is that not one of the
is it
5
fundamental
pillars?
to understand the hadith for religion?
Is that not one of the 5 pillars? And aren't you like? Did Muhammad not convey a single way to pray, or did he convey multiple ways to pray?
What do you mean?
So, Sunni and Shia, they perform their salah differently. Their form is different. I know that as a fact. You know it as a fact. I don't know if you know it as a fact.
I don't understand the crux of the matter.
Okay, I promise you. Am I correct in understanding that Shia and
There are
Sunni
different,
perform?
yes,
Right.
but that,
So,
that
one
doesn't
second.
constitute a fundamental principle of the religion.
One second.
Go ahead, yes.
Did Muhammad communicate multiple ways to perform salah or one way to perform salah?
One way, but
One way.
One way.
So who's
But-
right, the Sunni or the Shia?
the thing is, he did not say that there are things called mustahabbat. So there is a way that you can make your prayer the
pillars
baseline,
and conditions of
and then you can the baseline of what is acceptable salat, and then you can conduct salat in a way that makes it even more acceptable.
My question to you,
right?
Hold on. You're not dealing with my question.
I am, but
No,
you're
my
not
question
letting
is
me-
specific.
You're not letting him answer the
No, I am hearing, but he's not talking about the question I asked.
I'm
The
getting
question that I asked is Muhammad gave a way of performing salah. So whose way is correct? The Sunni or the Shia?
Look, by engaging in such a question, I contribute to the discord between the Sunnis and the Shia.
Fantastic answer.
Right? Therefore, I should not answer that question because the most important thing.
I would. Are you saying you don't know?
Is the, no, is the,
He didn't say that.
it's not that. That's not the case. It's my opinion on
I'll
the matter.
gladly
May
answer the
differentiate between what I believe and other people believe. Okay? The main intent is that the prayer goes to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, to God, right? And if you keep in mind, the fundamental principles of our religion always talks about the intention.
I get that.
الأعمال
And I'm not
بالنيات,
questioning that.
which basically means
I'm not questioning that.
The actions are based on.
I'm not questioning that. I get that. We have exactly the same principle in Christian faith.
Yes.
So I wouldn't criticize you for something that we have ourselves.
So that's fundamental.
Right, hold on, but here's the thing.
The
No,
way
no,
in
no,
which
no.
you carry out the
No, no, you're
belief is
still
fundamental.
right. You've basically said I don't want to answer the question.
No, he didn't say that.
Yes, that is exactly what he said. No, what he said, if you were listening, is that if I answer this question, I will add to the discord between Sunnis and Shia. So I will not answer that question.
I did not say that word.
Said.
I didn't say that. By engaging in such a question, I contribute to the discord between the Sunnis and the Shia. I never said that.
The people can decide at home. Here's why it matters.
Leave your ignorance.
Here's why it matters.
Embrace.
Here's why it matters.
Let me explain why it matters.
Here's why it
When you have
matters.
a camera, you lie.
Because Muslims go around saying we have this wonderful religion called Islam that is founded on the Quran, and we have this Quran interpreted by these hadiths, and we can trust these hadiths because they are reliable, they are sahih, we know their isnad, and we know the people that's in the isnad, and we know what their character is and how trustworthy they are. But yet, in something as basic as salah, as basic as prayer, there are two forms, which means that the tradition of the Prophet was not properly preserved. One of these two groups is wrong, either the Sunni or the Shia. And that throws into question the very reliability of the tradition itself.
Not really, because
That's why
what
it
you're making it as if it's a dichotomy between right and wrong, instead of seeing that it's on a spectrum of least correct and most correct.
So who's most correct, Sunni or Shia?
That's a reductionist question. By its very nature, that question.
What you're doing,
diversity in the religion.
There's a lot of diversity.
Yeah, exactly.
And
you need
this
to be
is
aware
what
about
this is.
the whole Islamic tradition. There is this jurisprudence, there is this whole tradition. So you must,
For example,
you should know about
there are
whole
7,
tradition.
8.
So Shias and Sunnis, both are part of Islamic discourse, right? You can't divide, you can't draw binaries between Shias and Sunnis. This whole
Sunnis and
Islamic
Shias draw binaries. That's
No,
why they're killing
no.
one
You're
another in
drawing
Iraq and Syria.
No, that's not
Here's a
like
question.
that.
They've lived alongside each other for
Yeah.
so long. That shows that you have no knowledge about politics. Don't you ever say that Sunnis and Shias are killing each other
So they're
because
not
of some
killing one another.
fundamental
So they're not killing
theological
one
beliefs.
another.
You have sectarian
So
entrepreneurs.
so
you
the
have
city
external
in Iraq is
intervention
not being
by the
bombed
United
by
States
Sunni terrorists.
that cause
Saudi
all of this.
Arabia
There are
is not
political
bombing
factors.
and killing
There are political
millions
factors.
of Yemeni children.
Listen, there are political factors behind why Sunnis may kill Shias and Shias may kill Sunnis, rather than the differences in the theological beliefs. They have lived alongside each other, conscious of these
The
differences.
division
for so long.
came about through
But
politics. You know that.
through politics. That's what I'm saying.
So who are the rightly guided caliphs?
Who are the rightly guided?
Yes, who are the rightly guided caliphs?
What does this have to do with why Sunnis
Because
and
you're
Shias are killing
saying,
each other?
oh, they're killing one another for politics, not religion.
Oh my God!
But the party of
It's the
Ali,
modern day politics.
the party of Ali, which is what the Shia came from, fought the Sunnis precisely because they believed that Ali was meant to succeed Muhammad.
Not for those.
Am I wrong?
And sectarianism, if you look into politics, and take it from a politics student, okay? Sectarianism is a modern day construct that was created by external intervention into
So they
our
didn't
land.
fight?
Do you know why? Hey, do you know why Sunnis and Shias have so much differences today in Iraq? Do you want me to give you a history about
You have
Iraq
so many
after
differences
2003?
theologically
That-
and in practice
Okay,
because
okay.
the
So
tradition of Muhammad
okay.
was not
If
preserved.
these theological-
That's why you have those differences.
If those theological differences were there for like thousands of years, how come they only started to kill each other since 2003?
They have. You don't know history. You might be a politics student, but you're not a student of religion, and you're not a student of history.
If you understand
Shia and
there's
Sunni,
always a political
no.
development that causes the death.
What
that causes
happened?
These conflicts.
One of the
Okay?
biggest festivals as a Shia. What is it? You celebrate the martyrdom of who? And what happened to him?
He died fighting an oppressor.
Who was the oppressor?
Yazid.
Was he a Muslim?
In
There you
label.
go.
In label.
There you
In
go.
label.
There you go.
Hey,
In
you-
label.
hey,
Do you
can-
think the Sunnis agree with you?
I don't. They can disagree with me, but this has nothing to do with the present. Okay.
Most of Sunni agree with him.
Because a lot of Sunnis do agree with me, and the more, if I fall into your trap, I'll be falling into the trap of talking so much about history, fighting so much about history that I have no ability to fight for the future with my brothers. Okay, this is what you're trying to do. You're trying to create discord between Sunnis
No,
and
brother.
Shias. You're trying
Hold on
to
one
show
second.
that there's
You
this
say that,
fundamental ancient
but what
hatred
you don't
between
understand,
Sunnis and Shiites.
I never hear a Muslim like you correct the Dawah team who go around attacking Christians and our beliefs. Never. You've never ever gone around
because I'm
and
omnipresent.
challenged.
Because I see them all the time.
No, I'm talking about ever in all the time that I've been here.
I do.
In all the time that I've been here.
This guy has been
In
here for a
all
long
the time that I've been here. I've never heard Muslims go up to other Muslims and say, why are you attacking the Christian faith?
Like, do you know how hard?
Why
it
are
is
you
to tell
attacking
them-
Christian beliefs?
Do you know how hard it is to tell them to stop?
And did
when
you
every
try
single
to do
day-
that in this conversation?
When every single
You
day.
did, didn't you? You tried to flip the conversation back onto the Bible, didn't you?
To show
Did you do that?
To show you that the accusations you're throwing at the Quran
Significantly more nuanced than that. That's
But we have a different belief to you.
reduction.
Right, we have a different belief.
So
but the
you
same
cannot
arguments-
throw the same argument back.
Yeah, we can.
No, you can't. Because if our
arguments
fundamental beliefs are
of the
different to
religion.
your fundamental beliefs,
If I may ask you a question.
one second. A valid criticism of a belief, for it to be valid, must take full appreciation of the fundamentals of the paradigm that it's critiquing. Therefore, if two worldview systems have different fundamental beliefs, the criticism that you can form has to be different, otherwise it is not a valid criticism. As a Christian, one second, as a Christian, I have fundamentally different beliefs to you.
Okay, but
Which means you cannot simply take my criticism of your religion and reverse it onto mine, because when you do so, the criticism becomes invalid.
No, that's
You
not
have to
necessarily
start
true.
from the fundamental
Because-
premises first to make
Because
a
the way
criticism.
in which Christianity has
Here's my question
carried out-
to you. It's rudimentary. What is your thesis statement? Is your thesis statement that Islam is wrong, or that Christianity is superior to Islam? That you believe that your religion is the religion that should be preferenced? And for a couple of reasons. The first that you outlined was that Sunni and Shiite groups are fundamentally irreconcilably different. Your statement surrounded Salah, right? And you were trying to outline how those two were completely different and couldn't be agreed upon, right? That internal discord meant that coming to some sort of fundamental religious truth could not be achieved via Islam. And the implication, correct me if I'm wrong, from you is that Christianity can lead one to those fundamental truths. Yes or no?
Answer to the question, because there was a lot of baggage that came with the question. We need to address some of that baggage. So my fundamental thesis,
context.
yes, that's fine. My fundamental thesis is this: the Quran says to me, as a Christian, that if I find errors in that Quran, it is not from Allah. Now, I don't know if you were here at the very beginning of this conversation.
Sadly not.
But I started this conversation by pointing out rudimentary scientific errors in the Quran. That's what my thesis was about. It went off on a tangent because this brother accused me of reading the Quran only to find errors and not to see its holiness, which is why we went on to a different topic. But my fundamental premise is that the Quran fails its own test. It says it's free from error when it's filled with errors. And that means that according to the Quran, not me, according to Allah, not me, it's not from God. And if it's not from God, you should stop believing it. Now, what you do with that, as a Christian, I then posit to you the truth of the Christian faith, which is not built on a book, which is why your criticism is not valid. It is not built on a book.
So you made a new book.
It is no. You see?
Characterize.
You have mischaracterized the Christian faith rather than engage with its fundamental premises. No, it's not the truth. And that's the point. The Muslims come and they challenge Christians based upon their characterization of Christianity. But when someone who takes the time to study Islam's fundamental beliefs and criticize their fundamental beliefs, they don't want to listen. They're embarrassed by their sources.
You don't seem to understand.
Wait, he's making a point now.
Do you think this conversation can proceed if I can show that the same critique you premise towards all of Islam by failing the Quran's own test can also be applied to Christianity?
Yes.
You concede that?
Yes.
Right?
So show me what is the biblical test.
But the biblical test?
Yes.
Take your pick.
What is the biblical test?
You can't go to the previously aforementioned screens and say that the biblical texts are the source of your religion. Which one are they? Also, before you like criticize everyone here for attacking.
I'm not criticizing everyone here. Don't mischaracterize me. I'm criticizing Islam. Not people. Islam. Cool.
Because you are criticizing me.
I'm not going to
stop being a soy boy. I'm talking about the religion. I'm not talking about the people.
So you're saying I can disconnect myself from my religion?
Fine. This is fact. Doesn't matter, right? So the next point, right, is you need to provide a characterization of Christianity that you believe is representative and generous. I will accept whatever it is. I think the fundamentals of reason say that you uphold the principle of charity. Give the opposition the best possible version of their argument and disprove that.
Okay, go. So,
Great question, by the way.
it is a great question. It is a great question.
You can answer it.
Yeah. So, in terms of the Christian faith, what is the test that our Lord provides? What is it that he says that you should judge the Christian faith by? Speaking of religious teachers, he speaks and says this: you shall know them by their fruits, and by their fruits you shall know them. For a good tree does not produce bitter fruit, and a bad tree does not produce good fruit, but each tree produces fruit according to its kind. So, using that test, I challenge you and you if you want to join them, let us compare the life of Jesus Christ to the life of Muhammad and see which one of them is the better example for us today.
By what standard?
That's the standard.
By what standard? The problem with that standard is that it is a metaphor.
Yeah, of course.
Right?
You didn't even
It's
answer
not a
the
metaphor.
question. You just made a challenge, and you didn't even answer his question.
No, it by definition is, right? Because you said, how shall you know those that, how shall you know,
You can't even
I'm
quote
paraphrasing. Oh, I'm sorry, I can't quote 35 seconds of monologue. Wow, I must be a moron.
No. Your words, bro. Your words, not mine. Your words.
Right? Okay, fine then. I'm an idiot. Correct me
Again,
if
your
I'm wrong.
words, not mine.
I don't.
You really should stop insulting yourself.
You do
There's
realize,
no need to.
You do realize that I don't.
Why are you attacking him
He's
personally now?
insulting himself. I've never said a word.
And now you're
He calls himself a moron. He calls himself an idiot. And you're blaming me.
He's trying to be charitable
So he doesn't
to you,
prove
and you're
you
just
wrong.
not accepting his sarcasm.
I'm trying to be nice, right? If you take being nice as a concession that a person loses in a debate, then frankly, you again abandon the principle of charity, and I will leave. All right? Simple as that. We can't agree on that. We can't agree on anything else. That I agree with the fundamentals of reason, and that's what I'm here for. I don't have a horse in either side of this race. I really couldn't care less if by the end of today you won this entire discussion. I couldn't care less if he won this entire discussion. I couldn't care less which side did. What I care about is getting to some sort of truth. Synthesis. Antithesis, thesis, get somewhere good. For the moment, I'm taking antithesis, just as a thought experiment. Merely that. In that instance, let's continue from where we dropped off when you called me and when you said that I called myself an idiot. We were talking about Jesus' characterization of who you should listen to. He takes first, you shall know an individual as to the fruits that he provides, right? Those fruits would be good or bad depending on the tree that provided them, right? That is the textbook definition of a metaphor, saying that one party is akin to another party in some sort of aspect that is not internal to themselves or is not obviously factual. So, that is a metaphor. That can't be disputed. That's how grammar works. If you want to take that up, take it up with the Queen. I believe it's her English, right? So, let's continue along this. The problem with metaphors is that they are, by nature, open to interpretation. Right? That metaphor could be taken one of two ways. Way number one, right? There may be others. I haven't looked into this for 3 hours. Way one. Let's say that each person produces a consistent amount of bullshit, right? That person could be considered somebody who produces poor information and is hence a bad tree. But then a good person is someone who produces continuously good information, considered a good tree. In that instance, let's ask the question, what is a good tree? What does it mean to be spouting truth versus to be spouting falsehoods? Your fundamental test doesn't provide a way to apply the test. If you shall know it unto itself, then it is merely a sense of what is true, or a sense that this is good, or a sense that this is poor, or bullshit, or whatever you'd like to term it. So, how do you apply your metaphorical test?
So, the way that we apply the metaphorical test, because literature and the use of cultural images are understood by people without further reasoning. In most contexts, if you say the president, most people's minds will simply go to the president of America.
Fair enough.
Why? Because in the Western world, there is a cultural resonance between the office of the president and our closest ally, the Americans. If we speak about the Queen, everyone here's mind goes to Her Majesty the Queen living in Windsor Palace. They don't go to some other queen living in some other country. In other words, terminology and language, in the way that we use it, sits within a cultural milieu, and that cultural milieu gives it its context. Christ said quite clearly, you shall know them by their fruits, and by their fruits you shall know them. And then he goes on to speak about the trees. He is speaking to a Jewish audience who are soaked in the teachings of the prophets.
Yes.
That means that when he is speaking in those terms, he is speaking within that paradigm, that phrase is understood. It is not taken in isolation just to mean anything you want saying because it's a metaphor. It's communicating something within a culture. Like I say, the Queen or the President.
Yes, but
I don't need to give further qualification. The qualification is there already in the minds of the people.
I'm dreadfully sorry about this.
1 second, don't interrupt. I didn't interrupt you.
Fair enough.
In terms of Christ's teaching, he was speaking about what was understood to his audience to be good. And what was understood to his audience to be good would be that which was defined by the prophets. That understanding of righteousness. To do unto others as you would have them do unto you. To seek your neighbour's good as if it was your own. To have a generosity of heart. To have a sense of hospitality. To have a sense of defending the weak and the oppressed. To oppose injustice and tyrants. Like the caliphs. That is the kind of justice that Jesus was talking about. Now, in terms of what was considered bad, it would be things like raping female captives, having sex with prepubescent children, oppressing, which would also be bad. You're quite right.
Sounds like the Bible.
You're also quite right.
You didn't add that in there, so I just thought I'd do it.
Yeah, you're right.
So please,
you're right.
That's wrong,
Yeah, absolutely.
Can you say that out loud?
And Muhammad having sex with a child was wrong as well. So, those are the things. So let's go on. Now that we understand the terms, let's go on and compare Muhammad's life to Jesus.
Let's do that.
I'll ask you as a man of reason.
Not yet. Before that, we have to... Look, you delivered several points, and I'd love to continue, but first responses must be made. Okay? The first thing is that you laid out a series of things...
I've got to go in 10 minutes, sorry.
Okay, well that's fine. Like most debates take like two 5-minute speeches anyway, so we'll get somewhere. That's good. So, you talked about how the prophets had a very clear set of characteristics. Those that you would see in the Old Testament, which is surprisingly similar to the Jewish scripts, right? They've been changed over time, they've been preserved to the best of their abilities in Hebrew, etc., whereas ours have been translated several times. Now here we have to ask a question. A, do unto others as you would have them do unto you. I've heard it in all 4 of the books of Christ's life, right? But what about all of the passages in the description of what is considered righteous treatment of another? An eye for an eye was considered a standard law of the time. A standard law then upheld by the scriptures and by the Bible. I cannot recall the exact prophet who stated it, but I know that every prophet has a dedicated book. Consequently, it stands to reason that if they argued, do unto others as they would do unto you, they could not concurrently agree with give an eye for an eye as any attack. That is not something I would like to do unto myself, nor would any reasoning person want that to do unto themselves. Obviously, then, the prophets, as you describe them, are internally contradictory. So, how do we tell a good apple from a bad apple? Or, let's go on to another one. Give me another example of one of the things that you consider standard for the day.
Okay, so, allow me to reply to the number of points that he's made. Firstly, I just need to correct him factually. The discourse on the Sermon of the Mount, where it says, do unto others as you do unto you, it does not appear in all 4 Gospels. It appears in the Synoptic Gospels, which is 3. Secondly, he said that all the prophets have a book dedicated to them. That is incorrect also. Moses has 5 books, and it is in the books of Moses that it talks about an eye for an eye and a tooth for a tooth. In those books it also says, do unto others as you would have done unto you. Love your neighbour as you love yourself. The standard of goodness that is taught in the Christian faith is that good which you desire for yourself. You aspire for your neighbour. That is Christ's teaching. No, 1 second, I didn't interrupt you. Now, it does not take any great wit or genius for us to understand what is in our own best interests. To have a home, to have food, clean water, clothing, the family, to be cared for when we are persecuted or oppressed. These are all things we would want for ourselves. By comparison, when Hitler came along and he said that the Jews were vermin, by the good that we want for ourselves, we can criticize this, knowing that it is not good. By comparison, when Muhammad came along and said, make the Alim al-Kitab humiliated, a subject people under your neck, under your boot, we know that that is not comparable to Christ's teaching. So we can make objective moral statements based upon comparisons of the religions, and Muhammad comes out a failure in comparison to the shining light that is Jesus Christ. By comparison, what would you offer? What is your criticism of Christ's teaching?
My criticism is not of Christ's teaching, because we haven't moved there. We haven't moved there yet. Oh sure, I'd be glad to criticize Christ till the sun goes down, but we don't have time. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to respond directly to your call of do as you would, but always try and oppose tyranny and the subjugation of other peoples. The example we were given was the Jews in Nazi Germany. A good example of unfair oppression. As is this. In this verse, Samuel, one of the earlier leaders of Israel, orders genocide against a neighboring people. This is what the Almighty says. For those of you reading at home, Samuel 15:3. Now go and strike Amalek and devote to destruction all that they have. Do not spare them, but kill both man and woman, child and infant, ox and sheep, camel and donkey, all that they have and are. That is a very clear, very direct statement by Samuel, and even you can't dispute that that's a prophet, for genocide. All right, great. That is our shining tree of what is goodness. You know it as from the prophets to be good. If that is the case, then I am entirely comfortable with criticizing Christ, as you asked, because his presentation of what is good as that of the prophet in your context is deplorable.
So, in reply, the brother's argument is based upon a fundamental misunderstanding of the Christian faith. Fundamental. And this is the problem we see again and again and again in the park. Because despite Mansour and Shamsi's claim that Muslims learn every day, they come to the park asking the same questions every day, and have done for the last 20 years.
Why are you changing the subject?
I'm going, don't interrupt, bro. So, in terms of this specific criticism, it is based upon a misunderstanding of our faith. Christ, in the statement where he says, "Do unto others as you should have them do unto you," is in the Sermon of the Mount when he takes the Mosaic law, an eye for an eye, a tooth for a tooth. He takes that restraint given in the Mosaic law and he takes it deeper. So he says that when someone strikes you on your right cheek, turn to him your left. Do not simply repay evil for evil. So he takes what the Mosaic law is teaching and he deepens it. And the understanding of the Jewish people was that within that law there was justice. That was the overriding concept of the Jewish law. And Christ takes that deeper in their understanding. He quotes Samuel. But do Jews go around arguing for genocide today? No.
2,000 years have passed.
Do Christians go around arguing for genocide today? No.
What happened in the ages, in the dark ages?
But
what about the times? What about the people behind American forces?
Can we find examples of Muslims arguing for genocide today? Yes, we can. Yes, we can. So there is a real difference in the teaching of Muhammad and Jesus. A point that the brother has not want to deal with in this entire conversation.
I haven't wanted to deal with Christianity without mentioning Islam. Because it's just been read. It's because you have no legs to stand on. So let's talk about Okay, do you mind if I just... you can literally time me for like 3 minutes. The challenge to any Christian is to defend your faith without mentioning Islam. I'm not going to continue if you're not here to defend yourself.
For the past 25 years to criticize the Trinity. For the past
25 years.
Tell the same to it. Tell the same to it. That one.
Pointing your finger, that's the rule. That's the first time I've come here in months.
I've got to go.
It's important.
I've got to go.
This is just clarity. I have nothing against you.
I'm not just you are. I'm not one of these soy boys, mate. I don't take it personally.
You shake the hand of him, but not the Muslim. Of course.
Shake hands.
Just so you know, in England, it's polite to take off your gloves when you shake someone's hand. Sorry, it shows. It's all right.
Take two.
In that case, absolutely. Sorry.
God bless.
I'm a South African plebeian. What can I say?
Nice to see young English.
Cheers. Thank you.
Thank you. Take it.
Yeah, I know. Sadly.
Very unusual to see someone Christian still believing in the faith.
Christians with ethnic clans, people, if it wasn't
Agree
for
all
human
in the
rights
name of
law,
the Lord.
that's what stops
God bless. Have a lovely afternoon.
Hallelujah. Good night. That's good. That's great. Long legs way down.
I love arguing. Yeah, I just love arguing with people, and I think that trying to find some
You edit that bit at the
Yeah.
beginning, yeah?
Yeah, I play you for this side.
No, because what he had after
Yeah.
was
So
I play
So what we see is that oh, thank you,
Good
sister.
fruit from the good tree.
Thank you. Sister. So what we see and what we have seen is again and again and again, Muslims are embarrassed by their own sources and want to distance themselves from them. And I would say to those Muslims, if you find your sources embarrassing, perhaps that is telling you something about your religion that you need to think about. Because if you can't follow the example of your prophet, then perhaps you need a better prophet. You will not find any Christian in this park who is embarrassed by the teachings of Jesus or his actions. Full stop. If you can't say the same about Muhammad, perhaps you need to think again about which religion you're following. As to the guy with reason, there was a lot to say. He actually is very eloquent, a bit waffly at times, but still eloquent. In terms of the objective realities, we know within our heart, because it is natural law, what is the best interest of ourselves. It doesn't take anything but reflection to understand that. And so it is not needed to inquire, but to simply discover that which is within, in terms of understanding that good that you want for yourself. But Christ compels you to aspire for that good to your neighbor. By comparison, Muhammad does not. So I've given the Christian test. Allah fails his own test in this book. Muhammad is not a good example according to Christ's teaching. But what flaw is there in Christ?